Who's bad? What the legacy of Michael Jackson says about us. Michael Jackson became an icon when I was a kid in the 1980s, growing up in eastern Kentucky, and was partial to country music. But Jackson's music struck the culture with a force hard enough to penetrate the foothills of Appalachia and the heart of a bunch of country boys more personally inclined to George Strait than the former lead singer of the Jackson 5. I remember being with my friends and leaving MTV on all day just waiting for Thriller, Billie Jean, Bad, and other songs by the King of Pop. I was captivated by the music along with every friend I had. It was that captivating quality of Jackson's music that created millions of fans around the world and fuels interest in the new movie about his life. I've not seen the movie and am not planning on it. But that may make me unusual since it has earned over $200 million in less than 2 weeks of release. In addition to generating a lot of money, the movie has generated a lot of controversy. The film nearly ignores the numerous claims of sexual abuse made by the many children with whom Jackson surrounded himself. The movie raises questions about how we evaluate the legacy of someone who made an unparalleled impact on our society, but who is simultaneously accused of devastating moral wickedness. Regardless of what you think about Jackson or the recent movie about his life, these are important questions that we regularly must address in a sinful world. The film is controversial because it barely addresses the many scandalous sexual accusations made against Jackson. Some have responded that the film only covers the star's life up to the late 80s and before the allegations of sex crimes became a serious issue. That is actually the point. The makers of the film made a conscious decision to cover the parts of Jackson's life that led to his superstardom, but to ignore the parts that led to scandal. The film paints an incomplete picture. It is true that Jackson, while accused of many crimes against children, was never convicted of any of them. But it's also true that the lack of criminal conviction does not mean there are no good reasons to believe Jackson was guilty of at least some of the crimes he was accused. It is true as well that there are some incontrovertible events to which Jackson has admitted that paint a picture of a man you would never want to leave alone with your children or grandchildren. The complexities of the situation, the trials that were never completed, the multi-million-dollar settlements paid to accusers, the people who once defended Jackson only to accuse him later, even his own death, mean we are unlikely ever to know exactly what happened between Michael Jackson and everyone who says he devastated their childhoods. But we should be able to agree that it does not serve the cause of truth to ignore the issue altogether. Obviously, a film bankrolled by Jackson's estate has an interest in neglecting the most scandalous elements of the star's life and legacy. But Christians should insist that a healthy society is not capable of evaluating someone's life until we've considered all the relevant facts available. The one-sided picture of Jackson's life portrayed in the recent film simply does not allow for an honest accounting of the singer's legacy. Once we consider all the available facts, things get even more complicated. How should we evaluate someone with such remarkable accomplishments who's simultaneously suspected of such terrible evil? Answering this question requires tremendous care. In a world stained by sin, only one man is untarnished by failure. Jesus Christ, the Son of God and Savior of humanity through his death on the cross, is the only perfect person in history. He alone gives grace and forgiveness to anyone who comes to him in faith. But even when Jesus forgives, it is still true that the most accomplished people are sinners living lives with blemished records. That's true of biblical heroes like Moses, of doctrinal heroes like Luther, and of American heroes like Washington. A proper evaluation of someone's legacy requires an evaluation of their accomplishments together with their failures. The crucial issue is how to weigh the legacies of people who are a mix of talents and transgressions. Society tends to do this by instinct rather than a clear moral formula. We tend to weigh the nature and extent of a person's failures against the nature and extent of their accomplishments to yield an imprecise verdict regarding their legacy. For example, in the case of someone like Jeffrey Epstein, our society acknowledges the remarkable accomplishment of his vast fortune, but we've refused to celebrate that accomplishment because of the magnitude of his crimes against women. On the other hand, in the case of someone like Martin Luther King Jr., society has generally been willing to overlook his marital infidelities because of the significance of his civil rights reforms. The verdict of society has been more split, with politicians like Bill Clinton and Donald Trump, whose many sexual sins are overlooked by their supporters and emphasized by their opponents. How should society weigh the accomplishments and failures of someone like Michael Jackson. In the category of accomplishments, Jackson was a phenomenal musician and entertainer, certainly one of the very best in history. In the category of failures, he's been accused of crimes that spanned a vast period of time, that included a vast number of people, and that involved behavior that is universally acknowledged to be among the most vile. More than that, if the claims are true, it means that Jackson's moral failures were tied to his accomplishments. Jackson's talent, fame, and wealth were a trap luring in his alleged victims. Jackson's accomplishments that society is so ready to praise are the very realities that granted him access to many more victims than similarly accused men. The moral heart of the matter concerns how we weigh the heinous accusations from people who say Jackson ruined their lives against his accomplishments of singing and dancing. Do we have the right to ignore the claims of sexual victimization against children because someone sang songs that made us feel good? Is it proper to celebrate the legacy of someone accused of devastating the lives of countless children because we loved watching him moonwalk? The answers to these questions move us away from Michael Jackson and into our very own hearts. I don't believe in censorship, and I reject cancel culture. I find it unhelpful to ban books or movies, and boycotts are often ineffective. That means that if people want to listen to Michael Jackson's music or go to a movie celebrating his life, they should have the freedom to do that. But no person should embrace that freedom without examining their own heart. How does it make you feel to tap your foot to the music of a man said to use the influence of that music to trap countless people in a lifetime of pain and heartbreak? How do you feel about spending your money on a movie that makes it harder rather than easier to discern the truth about this man's life? A while back, I was listening to an 80s playlist when Billie Jean began to play. I heard the syncopation of the opening drums, the synthesized bass line, and the electric keyboard play those familiar alternating notes. I heard that signature voice sing the opening line, "She was more like a beauty queen from a movie scene." As I listened, my foot started tapping, my head started bobbing, and my heart rate quickened. That amazing music did something to me. I was transported back in time to incredible memories of silver gloves, Ray-Bans, red leather jackets, and music that defined a generation. Then, my mind was transported to some of the accusations I've heard over the years from people my age in news reports and documentaries. I remembered the things I heard Jackson say with my own ears about his bizarre attachment to children. I thought about the preciousness of the childhood of my own kids, and I started to think about the tender innocence of my incredible granddaughter. That recollection also did something to me. My stomach turned, and that awesome song didn't sound so awesome anymore. The joy I once felt was replaced with pain and disgust, and I turned it off. You can tell a lot about a society by the sin they will tolerate in order to be entertained. You can tell a lot about your own heart by which sins you'll ignore so you can enjoy a really good song. When our interest in enjoying a good performance is stronger than the desire to weep over victimized children, it reveals something truly bad deep in our hearts. That means the new Michael Jackson movie may say more about us than it does about the star himself.